The nationalistic movement was a core element of the Romantic period, while the Impressionist movement developed later, largely as a reaction against the emotional excesses of late Romanticism. Nationalism was driven by the 19th century political upheavals, such as the Napoleonic Wars and various revolutions, which fostered strong national identities and desires for independence from dominant empires like the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This was coupled with the broader Romantic ideal of celebrating individual cultures and a deliberate effort by composers in countries like Russia and Bohemia to break free from the artistic dominance of German and Italian traditions by incorporating local folk melodies and the characteristic rhythms of national dances, such as the Polish mazurka or the Czech furiant. They also utilized folk-inspired harmonies and modes, which diverged from standard Western classical harmony. Many works were programmatic. That is, they told stories or depicted scenes from their nation's history, legends, or landscapes. Here are 4 examples of the nationalistic music that grew out of the Romantic period. First, Smetana's symphonic poem, Ma Vlast, which means my fatherland. Next, Sibelius's Finlandia. Thirdly, Dvorak's Slavonic dances. And finally, Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, which captures many Russian themes. In Italy, Giuseppe Verdi's opera Nabucco was written about the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar and his conquest of Jerusalem and enslaving the Israelites. The story blends the biblical account with fictional romantic and political plots. The work is seen as a political allegory for Italy's 19th century struggle for unification under foreign rule. In this opera, the chorus of the Hebrew slaves became an anthem for the Italian cause. It became a rallying cry for Italian unification movement, known as the Risorgimento. And the acronym VERDI was used as a patriotic code for Viva Vittorio Emanuele Re d'Italia, which translates to Long live Victor Emmanuel, King of Italy. This secret message was painted on walls and shouted by supporters disguising their political support for King Victor under the guise of praising the popular composer Verdi. This political and social movement resulted in the creation of the Kingdom of Italy in the mid-1800s. Here is Il Maltadetto from the final act of Nabucco. In England, there were numerous significant English Romantic and nationalistic composers, particularly during the late 1800s and early 1900s. English musical renaissance grew out of this time. Key figures in the Romantic era include Sir Edward Elgar, known for his grand orchestral works like the Enigma Variations and the Pomp and Circumstance marches. Pomp and Circumstance is still being played at almost every graduation. Building on this foundation, a distinct English nationalistic movement emerged, led by composers such as Ralph Vaughan Williams and Gustav Holst. These men actively incorporated native folk songs and earlier English musical traditions into their compositions, aiming to create a unique national sound, exemplified by works like Vaughan Williams. Here's one of his best known pieces, The Lark Ascending. And another piece that has become very, very popular is Holst's The Planets. In contrast, Impressionism emerged in the late 19th century France as a direct rejection of the perceived heaviness and overly dramatic expression and strict formal structures of late Romantic music, especially the works of Richard Wagner. Impressionism was inspired heavily by French Impressionist painters and symbolist poets who focused on atmosphere, light, and fleeting sensory impressions. Composers such as Claude Debussy sought new harmonic languages, prioritizing tone color, use of non-traditional scales, and a focus on mood and atmosphere instead of the strong narratives and direct melodies of the Romantic era. Impressionist music differs from Romantic music primarily through its shift from clear emotional narratives to subtle, atmospheric color and sensation. Harmonically, Romantic music relies on strong functional harmony with clear tonal centers, traditional scales, and unresolved chords. Conversely, Impressionist music features non-functional harmony, extended chords, ninths, elevenths, thirteenths, non-traditional scales, whole tone scales, pentatonic scales, modal scales, and unresolved dissonances to create tonal ambiguity and an elusive sonic quality. Structurally, the distinction is also evident. Romantic music employs well-defined forms with strong rhythms and memorable driving melodies, whereas Impressionist music utilizes looser, more fluid forms, asymmetrical rhythms with an often obscured pulse, and fragmented melodies, favoring a continuous evocative flow over a structured narrative. Here are two of the most famous pieces of the Impressionist era, Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy and Carnival of the Animals. You may recognize Carnival of the Animals, which Disney borrowed for the opening scene of his version of the movie Beauty and the Beast. The Impressionist era also saw new and expanded use of instruments, which allowed composers to prioritize timbre and atmospheric effects over traditional melodic and harmonic structures. There was also a wide use of exotic percussion instruments like celesta and gongs, frequent use of the harp for shimmering glissandos and flowing textures, and the exploration of the full, often darker ranges of woodwinds. Composers also employed mutes on brass and strings to create a new quality of sound. They experimented with extensive pedaling and new techniques on the piano to blur its tone qualities. And they introduced relatively novel instruments like the saxophone into orchestral works. This focus on unconventional instrumental combinations, extended playing techniques, and a paintingly approach to orchestration treated the ensemble as a palette of colors, creating music that was fluid, less structured, and aimed to evoke feelings or impressions rather than clear narratives in forms. From this period, Claude Debussy is arguably the most famous and iconic composer, and his most famous composition is probably Clair de Lune. Other highly significant works of his are A Prelude to a Faun and La Mer. These pieces exemplify Impressionist characteristics like focus on atmosphere, color, and suggestion instead of direct narrative. Here is Afternoon of a Faun.